The beauty of open world RPGs is that you can truly be whoever you want to be. Okay, now obviously that statement's not entirely true, as we must still abide by the parameters of said game. But within these constraints, most of these games provide players with the opportunity to reach the finish line by utilizing any or all the tools provided. This is where people like me begin to ask this one simple question: how far can I push it? And to further elaborate, how restricting can I be with these tools to provide me with a true challenge? I think fundamentally, most modern Western action RPGs are just way too easy, even when playing on the supposed hardest difficulty. The freedom granted to a player, more often than not, creates this imbalance of power between the main character and their enemies, especially when you're being pulled off in every direction, doing every side quest the game encourages you to explore, which is ultimately the appeal of these games, so I get it. But I, for some reason, have this innate nature to play these types of games all wrong, most of the time. Whenever I pick up a new action RPG, I compulsively feel the need to fully explore every nook and cranny before even beginning the main story, leading me to never actually finish the game. Many a main character now rot away in the crypt of forgotten save files, fully geared and leveled, but cast away, never to become the Dragonborn or whatever the fuck the narrative of the moment is. And now that I'm thinking about it, you could actually say I play these games wrong twice, in two completely different ways. Truthfully, I really only ever complete a game's main story if I'm doing one of these challenge runs, experiencing the full story through whatever self-imposed difficulty I'm exploring at the time. So far, you've all witnessed my first time ever completing The Witcher 3, Kingdom Come Deliverance, and Metal Gear Solid 5. Well, today's game is no different, as I set out to see if it's even possible to beat Cyberpunk 2077 using only my mind. Now, what do I mean exactly when I say only my mind? Well, exactly what it sounds like. For this challenge, I'm limiting myself to only use quick hacks. That means no guns and no blades. Beyond this, I know the skill tree can get a little overpowered in the latter parts of it, so I'm also forbidding any external leveling via side quests or gigs, and the only money I'm entitled to is from looting enemies and POIs within any main quests, selling the goods off whenever I needed some extra eddies. This was in an attempt to limit me from buying up all the best cyberware and quick hacks, potentially making me too strong too early. Alright, so that should be just about everything. Oh wait, I'm also not allowed to use any consumables, so no grenades, no throwing knives, and certainly no health items. Okay, now we can begin. Of course, this game starts where it always does, at the Coyote Coho bar, mid-conversation with the bartender Pepe. Now, Pepe's run himself up quite a steep tab with the local fixer Kirk, who conducts his business from the second story of the bar. Pepe was in pretty deep and was calling upon me for help. The least I could do was go talk to him and see if I could squeeze any ounce of mercy from him. He said Pepe's debt would be cleared if I was willing to work a job for him. And upon hearing the details of the job, I figured it would be just as effective to unironically put a bullet in my head now, since what he was asking of me was damn near suicide. He assured me that he had people on the inside who could put me in the seat of the target vehicle without anyone knowing who took it or where it went. With his word backing his claim, I agreed to do the job and went off to where Kirk said I would find it. And sure enough, as I entered the parking garage, the clerk confirmed the cameras were indeed offline. So I went on to attempt to collect the ride, but the key Kirk gave me turned out to be a dud. As I'm freaking out, trying to figure out what the fuck to do from here, the car door suddenly opened and there's a barrel shoved in my face, and a voice telling me to get out of the vehicle. I calmly followed his orders until we were run up on by NCPD. God damn it, we were fucked. As our faces are just about to bite the curb, the owner of the ride shows up and surprisingly orders us to be let go. So both this random dude and I are transported and dumped in one of the many back alleys of Night City. After a double botched job like that, this new guy and I bond over our propensity to get involved in things that are way out of our league. And so we became friends.
Food it is. Let's go.
Fast forwarding to the present, Jackie and I are on a job, and this is where I get my first taste of what combat is going to be like under these conditions. To be honest, it was going quite well for a while, but I get a bit too reckless with my antics and took way too many unnecessary hits. My guy Jackie was doing his best, but come on man, you ain't hitting shit. All the while, I'm constantly waiting for my RAM to recharge since my only form of damage are from quick hacks. And at this point, I only have 3 of them: Overheat, Reboot Optics, and Short Circuit. The best out of the 3 being Overheat, since its damage over time adds up to more than the single burst from Short Circuit, and Reboot Optics doesn't do any damage. After clearing the entire room of the lesser guards, I pushed in toward the one big dude chilling in the back wielding a couple of miniguns. And I find a dumb little spot I could just camp where he, for some reason, doesn't see me, and I could just overheat him anytime I had enough RAM until he was dead. Once he was dispelled, I moved on to find my target had been listening to way too much Joe Rogan and passed out in her ice bath. God damn it. I got her out of the tub and tried warming her up while waiting for Trauma Team to arrive. Fortunately, I was able to pass her off before she was dead, successfully completing our job. Jackie and I then left the building and went on to have a nice, peaceful drive home. Until this van full of gonks showed up and began shooting up our ride. At first, the game gave me a gun and I didn't know what to do. Plus, the enemies weren't actually shooting at us at this point. I guess the threat of a gun being pointed back at them was enough to deter them, so we weren't in any immediate danger. I forgot for a moment what I was supposed to be doing, and then I realized I could probably just hack the dudes in the van and get rid of them that way. And so I gave it a shot. And nice. I overheated the 2 armed men positioned in the back of the van, and then when I got the opportunity, I blinded the driver and sent them crashing into a building, allowing us to get away with no further injuries. After Jackie dropped me off and I got an opportunity to level up, I put one of my perk points into optimization, which gives me a 35% recovery speed on my RAM, and I allocated that attribute point toward intelligence, since the majority of my desired perks would be tied to the progress of the skill tree. Then, before settling into bed, I sold all my non-essentials, which was basically everything but the clothes on my back. Then I turned in for the night and dreamt of what could await me the following day. The next morning, I met up with Jackie, who'd landed us a gig with one of the biggest fixers in Night City, Dexter Deshawn.
Fat-ass black Jesus of the afterlife.
Jack and I had been making waves through the city, and finally some people were starting to recognize this. After a very awkward silence between me and Jackie, we left to our favorite ripper dog, Vic's, for a hookup on some new cyberware. The reason Vic was my favorite was because I felt he cared. He really had a passion for medicine. You know, Nah, I'm just fucking with you. I went to him because he was always down to give me free shit. After getting some new eyes and hands, Dex rolls up offering me some free candy, and I just couldn't resist. Turns out it was just a trap to lure me into boring me with the specifics of our upcoming job. Whatever, man, I got this. Upon exiting the vehicle, I'm awarded with another level, so another point to intelligence, and picked up proximate propagation. And since I'd obtained and sold a decent amount of guns and other odds and ends, I figured it was time to invest in some new cyberware. Oh, I didn't realize I was this broke. It was then that it hit me. I may have been limiting myself a bit too much with this whole money situation, but it was still very early on in the game, so I decided to stand my ground and keep this restriction alive. After being laughed out of the Ripper Docks, I mosey on over to meet back up with Jackie in hopes that this next job would land me some real scratch. This job was extremely simple. All we had to do was pick up a prepaid parcel from a band of Maelstrom cyber freaks on the east side of town. After seeing the flathead and ensuring it was fully operational, I kindly thanked them for their patronage and began to stand up. Then, this douchebag Royce butts in from the back, talking about how I was supposed to bring him payment and that the payment he'd already received was unacceptable, putting a gun to my chin and demanding the eddies. And the second he let his guard down, I turned the lead on him and I'm presented with 2 options. I can either pay the man or shoot him. Now, this is a dilemma. As I've already covered, I'm a broke bitch. All the money I have up until this point is all I could ever have at this point, and it's not enough. So the 2 real options are break the weapon rule or break the money rule, effectively ending this run regardless of my decision. Since the money rule is my own self-imposed rule and only a secondary rule to the overarching beating Cyberpunk with my mind, my solution was to go back and scrounge together about 5,700 more eddies to pay the man without any further conflict. But then I realized, I could just call up Militech Meredith and convince her that I have the ability to make this a win-win for both of us. Obviously, I know this route would ultimately lead to me still needing to fight my way out of this, but this way I get to keep my money and have no need to even raise a weapon at Royce. The Militech money was, of course, a ruse. This was obviously a hacked card and the freaks went apeshit. From here on out, it's just all-out war, melting minds left and right. And Jackie actually does a pretty damn good job clearing the first few enemies we came across, of course with the help of a few overheats from yours truly. things were looking pretty good for us. That was until we got through to a more open part of the compound that was crawling with enemies and a now jacked up Royce. This area was littered with explosives, which was really helpful for me since Initiate Overload is a super cheap quick hack that has the potential to inflict tons of damage. This room actually took me a couple tries to get through, but I eventually melted the minds of everyone who stood in my way. One thing that's bugging me as I'm watching this run back after the fact was that I noticed I seriously overlooked the absolute GOAT, cameras. Early on, I never thought to use them because they took 4 precious RAM to gain access to, but once you're punched into one, you can cycle all the other cameras that are linked to it and basically wipe out the entire compound without ever moving an inch. So overlooked. Oh well, too little too late. Once Jackie and I were out and free from the building, I took a moment to level up, taking Embedded Exploit for the plus 10% RAM recovery rate and Eye in the Sky. And I didn't take that for any particular reason other than to get access to some perks higher up on its branch. Like I said, I wasn't thinking right back then. I did the right thing, but never took the time to recognize its potential. Just moments after spending my points, I get a congratulations call from Dex and sell pretty much everything in my inventory. Then I found myself back at the character screen investing my next perk point into Hack Q since I got a nice bump of XP after the job was officially completed. In order to set up the next part of the big heist, I'm now off to Lizzie's bar to meet up with Evelyn and learn how to brain dance, taking a moment to charm Judy with my technical fascination of her setup.
Top shelf hardware.
After learning the basics on how to brain dance, I'm then fed the brain dance I came here for. It was damn near a 4D blueprint of Arasaka's penthouse suite, courtesy of Evelyn herself. With everything we needed finally falling into place, it was finally time to assemble the team and execute the plan. This job was sure to either catapult us to the big leagues or send us out in a blaze of glory. We were about to step into the lion's den of all lion's dens, all to clep a biochip we know next to nothing about. I'm sure everything will be just fine. After meeting up with Dex and T-Bug to go over the plan one last time, Jack and I step into what may very well be our last Delamain ride ever, en route to Konpeki Plaza. Once we get all checked in and situated in our room, we get to work on step 1 of the plan, take out the plaza's main netrunner. Using the building's camera network, I command the Flathead to navigate through a few occupied rooms, overcoming some pretty menial obstacles, eventually gaining access to the netrunner and having the Flathead neutralize him. So far, so good. It's been a while since I played this game, and I forgot how quickly you level up. Like, fuck, I've been gaining levels like crazy, at least when I'm comparing it to The Witcher. So with all my newfound levels, I'm just dumping all my attribute points into intelligence and spending my perk points on what felt most useful to me at the time. I was always on the lookout for anything that would give me any kind of cooldown on my RAM recharge, or even better, extra damage from my quick hacks. After a quick rest on the couch to get my head right, it's finally showtime. We casually made our way up to Yorinobu's private suite and began to search for the biochip. Judging from the brain dance, it was pretty obvious where it was, and once we had it in our possession, the private elevator begins moving in our direction, leading us to be crammed into the backside of a TV screen. We knew we were in deep shit, but little did we know we would become an eyewitness to the patricide of Saburo by Yorinobu's hand. Fuck me, we were in deep shit. Once Yorinobu left to get help, Jackie and I made a run for it out the window T-Bug opened for us, and this is where all hell broke loose. A goddamn Arasaka gunship was looking right at us, ready to unload, leading us to take a leap of faith, crashing through a window and falling down 40 feet. It's a miracle neither of us died. But Jackie got messed up pretty bad. Not only that, but the temperature-controlled case that housed the biochip was breached and losing stability by the second. In an attempt to save the chip, Jackie slots it in himself. What a crazy son of a bitch. We powered through to the elevator, albeit slowly, since Jackie's aim is still shit and my RAM still recovers rather slowly. It's mostly a game of cat and mouse, but where I'm the cat and their heads are on fire. Jackie and I finally escape back to our Delamain, but the war ain't over yet. There's now 3 Arasaka ships hot on our tail, and it's our, mostly my, job to take them out. This, surprisingly, was one of the hardest points in the game thus far. These goddamn drones dish out way more damage than I do, subjecting me to many flatlines. Truth be told, I thought this was gonna be it. This is the point I thought I would need to either adjust some rules or just fail the run. I truly thought there was no way past this section as it stood. Then I began to notice through my multiple attempts that there was just a sprinkle of RNG when it comes to how many of their shots would actually connect and injure me. Since I was disallowing health items, I had to get crafty. I figured if I could take out the 2 smaller drones, then just relentlessly spam reboot optics on the large one, I might be able to play for time and not need to worry about actually destroying it. Well, it turns out you can't do that. There is a certain point on the road that without destroying the 3 ships, you will just automatically flatline. Well, fuck. What was I to do? Well, to tell you the truth, I actually invested some of my attribute points into the tech tree, locking me out of another level of potential perks I could have access to. Some of these sounding pretty damn useful right about now. So I took advantage of the free respec the game provides you with and dumped it all into intelligence, breaking into that 3rd tier and investing in a new ability, Overclock, as well as an additional perk to buff the damage of this newly acquired ability. With my skills now reset in this new Overclock ability, I was hopeful to end my anguish. Sure as shit, that did the trick. Jackie and I were free and on our way to living the high life. There will be eddies by the truckload. This was just the beginning of our freshly obtained status. We did it, Jack. We can finally take off our shoes, kick back, and relax. Jackie? Jackie? Oh, no. No. Fuck. Well, the least I could do is make sure he didn't die in vain. So I sent Jackie off to his family and continued forward to meet back up with Dex and figure out where we go from here. What else should I expect from this dude I barely knew? The cocksucker pulled out a metaphorical knife and stuck it right smack dab in the middle of my back, flatlining me and ending the game. Wait, that seemed way too easy. I remember this game being a lot. I woke up, not as V, but now I'm all of a sudden thrown into the shoes of a dude named Johnny Silverdick. I know, I thought it was a weird name too. Anyway, we're apparently a lead-swinging lead singer that has some sort of double life or something. Singer by night and terrorist by night. Whatever. These sequences are relevant to the main crux of the game, but since Johnny doesn't have any hacking abilities, I'm forced to use his gun in all of these sequences. I'm just gonna skip over these parts and not consider them part of the run. I know, but exceptions need to be made in these types of situations. After reliving what felt like a memory, I'm thrust back into my real body, face down in a pile of garbage.
V has come to.
In the haze of me coming back to life, I was spared the satisfaction of watching that dickhead Dex be executed right before my eyes. I'm just mad I couldn't be the one to do it. Turns out the person responsible for my sudden happiness was none other than Saburo's bodyguard, Takamura. He yanked me from the trash heap and I'm now forced to take a max stock, marking the 3rd time this run has technically failed, and we're barely out of the prologue. After a fairly short chase scene using my mind to wipe out all the bad guys, I find myself, once again, lying on the operating table of my old pal Vic. He breaks the bad news to me that I was dying of some sort of artifacted terrorist code taking over my body, referring to the chip I slotted during that whole Arasaka heist. After I got patched up and back to the comfort in my own room, I'm forced to come face to face with this terrorist in the form of a hologram only I can see. He's not truly real, he's just a construct that got corrupted when Dex zeroed me, now forcibly rewriting my code and replacing it with that of Johnny's. Once I've finally collected myself and downed some Omega blockers, Takamura wastes no time calling me. He wanted to link up at a cafe just down the street. He knows something's not right with the whole Saburo situation and wants my help to bring justice to his master. The connections I've made with Evelyn are of interest to him and wants me to get in touch with her. Unfortunately, she's fallen off the map ever since I'd last been alive, so he tasked me with chasing any leads that might be able to lead me to her. I began my search in the most obvious of places, back at Lizzie's where I met her. I met Judy in her lair and questioned her about where Evelyn might be, and she's not super pleased to be talking to me, but she begrudgingly points me in the direction of a place she might be called Clouds. Once inside Clouds, I, under the guise of wanting a little side action, ask one of her coworkers where I might be able to find her, who then points me in the direction of another Joy Toy located in the VIP section. Since I'm much too poor to afford this exclusive access, my only option was by force. After melting the brains of all those who chose to stand in my way, I finally reached my next target, who then points me to another man. Jesus Christ, this is getting old. Well, Boss Man wasn't really keen on giving me any information for free, but a few quick hacks to his brain and a peek at his computer, I get all the information I need. I later met up with Judy at probably the sexiest ripper dock in Night City.
Blah, blah, blah. Proper name, place name, backstory stuff.
And he's able to give us the most recent account of her location. Oh please, I fucking hope so. She's held at a gonk-infested warehouse that I now needed to infiltrate and finally make contact with Evelyn, and I end up getting zeroed about a dozen times in my attempts to do so, eventually proving successful, finding Evelyn, and getting her the hell out of there. Back at Judy's, I thought I'd try my hand at a little flirting and got immediately rejected. That wouldn't be the first time. Since this game hands out experience like candy at a parade, I took some time here to purchase a few more perks, then went off to talk to an old fixer pal of Johnny's, Rogue. I tell her about her terrorist buddy hijacking my body, and she just so happens to know who designed the chip and exactly where I could find him. Of course, only for a nominal fee of 15 grand, which I thankfully have at this point. The thing about this operation though is that it was not a one-man army type of deal, so I was gonna have to recruit some help. And it just so happens that Rogue also knew just the person. And boy...
You look like a cut of fuckable meat.
You said it, Adam. Just like any other action RPG, we gotta do a small thing before doing the bigger thing. In this case, it was completing the last job Panam was assigned to do. After getting her car back and the package that was stolen, we link up with her old crew who doesn't really seem all too keen on helping us, so that just leaves this massive job for just the two of us. Surely this won't end badly. After installing some new hardware into my body and getting utterly rejected by Panam for definitely the first and only time, I'm finally ready to come face to face with this Hellman dude. But first, Panam needs me to calibrate the turret mounted on the top of her car, technically making this the fourth time this challenge has been failed, but since I'm not really killing anyone during this, we can let it slide, right? Anyway, Panam and I are headed in to overload the power grid, and it was at this point I knew I'd fucked up. Before this mission started, I had bought a new cyber deck but failed to load any quick hacks onto it, leading me to have to reload a previous save, making me calibrate the turret over again, making this the fifth time. Getting back to the mission, I'm now able to take out all 3 security drones with no problems, hack the pylon, and overload the system. All that was left to do was push the big red button. The big red button. Come on. Yes! Thank fuck it worked. Well, almost. Panam still had to hit it with a missile for it to actually fall from the sky. On our way to the crash site, I took out a few drones from the safety of my turret link. Panam got shot, and her crew was making their way to this shitstorm of a botched job with no way to contact them or call them off. We got to the site and I began picking off the defensive forces, but we were too late. Scorpion got obliterated in his attempts to help, not knowing it was such a high-profile craft. Amidst the devastation of losing Scorpion, we also find out that Hellman was gone as well. We found their tracks, but before taking off, I went around looting all the dead bodies while Panam lamented about how badly she'd fucked up. Finally shaking off the grief, Panam and I take off, following a fresh set of tracks left by, hopefully, Hellman. There were a few petty gonks and cyber psychos along our way, but nothing a bit of heat couldn't fix. After locating Hellman, I gave Takamura the call and decided to have a little chat with the man before handing him off. According to him, I was incurable. Of fucking course, dummy, tell me something I don't know. After getting nothing from Hellman, I let Takamura take over. Upon leaving the room, I fell incredibly ill due to the chip's corruption. I immediately took my Omega blockers and shut down whatever fucking diatribe Johnny was on about. I now have my very own vehicle and decided to have some fun with it by testing it out on some of Night City's more unofficial street courses before making a pit stop at the local Netrunner shop to pick up a few more quick hacks. Turns out I'm a dumbass. I know, what's new? I wasted all the money I had thinking I bought some dope new quick hacks, when instead I just bought essentially the blueprint for 7 new hacks, but had none of the materials to actually craft them, leaving me out basically all my money. In return, I got a big old pile of nothing. After sobbing quietly in the corner for the next few minutes, I eventually make my way over to the Voodoo Boys neighborhood since that's where I was told to go next. I'm greeted extra warmly by one of the higher-ups, Placide. And just like Pan Am, he ain't helping me unless I help him first. Of course he won't. After getting zeroed by a couple of jacked up cyber psychos, I finally make my way through the mall and come across the brick wall of all brick walls, Matilda. This hulking mass of a woman has insane health regeneration, and it can only be stopped by taking out the crystal on her back. There's only one problem. There are no destroy crystal quick hacks, so there's virtually no way for me to beat her. I mean, seriously guys, this is fucked up. There's gotta be a way to kill her under my terms. This can't be it. This can't be the end of the run.
Ready for some fun?
Huh?
What's going on?
Oh, I can just avoid her entirely? Neat. Meeting back up with Sam B, I'm finally awarded with my audience with the person I'm really here for, Brigitte. She was gonna help me find a cure through cyberspace. After watching one too many Joe Rogan podcasts, they were convinced a cold plunge would cure me of my sickness. Feeling pretty unsure about it, thinking about that girl I saved in the beginning, I decided to at least give it a shot. As soon as my body was fully submerged, I was shot into the web and proceeded to reckon with all my demons, past and present. This puts us back in Johnny's body to engage in a little bit of slap and tickle with an alt girl, literally my dream, only to immediately abuse her afterwards.
If I need your body, I'll fucking...
Skipping past the rest of Johnny's part, I'm taken to the edge of cyberspace, the wall into the dark web, and of course I'm gonna be the one heading inside. While inside, I met with Alt, who also tells me there's no cure. Unless I can somehow make it onto Mikoshi, which is Arasaka's big space prison essentially. Then Netwatch shows up to fry the fuck out of all the Voodoo Boys. Oh yeah, I made a backroom deal with them while I was inside the simulation. Voodoo ya voodoo, bitch. Once out of the Matrix, I push out of the complex, overheating the minds of everyone who stood before me, eventually making it to Placide. Now, judging by the boss-sized health bar, you would assume that this is supposed to be a boss fight, right? Well, I don't know, cause this doesn't really seem all that captivating, if that was the intent. Needless to say, he didn't fare well. Bursting out of the church doors, the relic begins malfunctioning yet again, but this time I try hearing Johnny out for the very first time. We share a cig and have a nice little chat about trust.
What a fucking liar, dude. What a fucking Weasley little liar, dude. What a fucking Weasley little liar, dude.
I was off to the Badlands to help Pan Am rescue Saul from captivity. He was being held at an abandoned Corpo factory, and after some drone surveillance, I was ready to begin my covert raid on the camp. Of course, since my quick hacks are notorious for pointing my targets right to my location, they inevitably do, which bumps this shit up to 11 and I get to go all out Rambo, lighting people's heads ablaze and exploding every barrel my enemies had the unfortunate luck of standing next to. It was a bloodbath. In the aftermath, I make contact with Saul and evac the Foxtrot uniform Charlie Kilo out of there. Of course this escape doesn't end here, and I'm faced with yet another chase scene where I'm limited by time and have zero cover. Just like the last car chase, back when Jackie was still alive, I was hitting failure after failure, forcing me to listen to these two bicker about the same shit over and over and over again. The thing that made this so difficult is that the cars tailing us would be either just out of range of my eyes, or the car would just obscure enough of their body that I couldn't get a hack off. After doing this so many times, I finally worked out a pattern of these guys and was able to take them all out and retreat to an abandoned shack to wait out the rest of the storm. Definitely not getting shot down by Pan Am a second time. Then, in the morning, she gives me this dope gun that I just can't wait to sell. Surely it'll fetch a nice price. I traveled back to Night City to sell all my wares and ended up buying a couple tier 3 quick hacks, Overheat and Synapse Burnout. After slotting those, I go to meet up with my old pal Goro at the docks near Japantown, so we can tell an old friend of his the truth about what really happened the night of Saburo's murder. It's too bad he was already planning a parade, so he wasn't available to assist us. Damn, we gotta really use his help on this one. But Wakaka has my back like always and gives us some extremely valuable information for free. Thanks, Wakaka, I owe you one. Since Takamura needed some time to put together a plan, I head off to Judy's since she's been calling me nonstop for like the last hour. Honestly, she's being a bit clingy if I'm being honest. Oh well, let's see what the fuck's got her panties in a... Oh god, Evelyn. Yikes, I better just walk that back real quick. Yep, Evelyn committed the big sleep. Oh god, I hope it wasn't because of that awkward moment we had earlier. Anyways, after a cigarette break and trauma bonding with Judy, I went back to my apartment to get some much needed sleep. I'm woken up by a call from Goro and he's finally come up with a plan, so I head out to meet up with him and hear him out. He's got one fucked up idea of a plan and I'm in it to win it now. He needed me to take out 4 snipers and get access to a netrunner overseeing the security of the float Hanako is on. But before all of that, I needed to ignite my way through an Arasaka compound and hack into the controls of the float. This compound was stocked to the brim with enemies, but there were so many cameras that I freely went about turning everyone into human tiki torches. Finally getting a chance to test out my new tier 3 quick hacks, and boy do they dish out the deeps. Synapse Burnout is cool and all, but it costs more RAM and does less damage total than Ye Olde Faithful. I have a couple perks that I invested in, but I don't really use all that much, like Quick Hack Q and anything pertaining to it, but on the flip side, I invested a couple of points into Body for the health regen perks, and Cool for its mitigation and movement bonuses. It was finally time. Everything was set and ready for Parade Day, or as it's now referred to as P-Day. Takamura was talking up these snipers like they were some sort of elite security force, but honestly, they were no better than the Secret Service on July 13th. I blew through them and any other petty bodyguards that took a shot at me, and made it to the netrunner with little to no issues, only to come up to one of the harder parts of this run, Oda, and fuck me did he look angry. What the fuck is that? Oh, he's got a smart pistol, what the fuck? Just keep jumping, jumping. Is he really just gonna sit there and let me hack him? Oh fuck, he's healing. Oda! This fight wasn't really all that bad once I figured out his moveset. I failed repeatedly over and over again, learning more each time, just like I would with a game like Elden Ring. I was determined that this next run was gonna be for all the bananas, and I was gonna finally be victorious. I put in the hours, I studied the material, I will beat him. Well, turns out everything I fucking learned, every hour I spent, would all be thrown out the window as soon as we started our final duel. He almost immediately got stuck with his head clipping into the floor, exposing enough of his body for me to overheat him to death, and since it looks like his healing ability requires him to make contact with the ground, he can't even do that. R.I.P. Oda. You were a worthy adversary, and I'm sorry it ended like this, but my people, we have no honor. I then hack into Hanako's parade float to disable any remaining security so Takamura could finally make contact with her and convince her of the truth of how her father actually died. Wrapping up any loose ends on my way out of the building, I ride down the elevator and head off to meet back up with Takamura, where he's secretly holding Hanako. In the end, we were somehow located by the Arasaka goons and were just about to be arrested, until the floor gave way and sent us all falling a few stories and positioning a group of enemies between me and the exit. So I had no choice but to fight my way through using my, frankly overpowered, tier 3 overheat. I now needed to get the hell out of the city, so I went the only safe place I could think of, the motel where Panam and I shared our first night together. During my stay, I'm visited by someone claiming to have a message for me. Johnny urges me not to answer it, but fuck him, I make my own choices. It was a proxy sent by Hanako in order to safely deliver me a message. She's finally come to her senses and believes me, offering me a helping hand. Before I met up with Hanako though, I sell all my wares and upgrade a bunch of my cyberware since I know the conclusion is just around the corner, meaning that there's sure to be at least one more boss fight, and I wanted to be prepared. After meeting with Hanako and hearing out her offer, I went to leave, but before I could, I passed out in the elevator, waking back up in Victor's chair yet again. This time, he only has bad news for me, and in an act of sympathy, offers me a way out on my own terms. But that's not how I wanted this all to end. I needed to see this through to the very end. Shaking off my existential dread, I was now off to relieve Hanako of her assigned security detail, courtesy of her brother. After infiltrating the compound Hanako was being protected in, and freeing her from her brother's watchful eye, her, Hellman, and I all took a helicopter ride to Arasaka Tower so she could reveal to me that her father actually lives on via the same, or at least similar technologies that I have with Johnny. Now, there was a huge meeting of the minds taking place around the same time, so Hanako and Saburo's plan was to confront the board with my testimony and Saburo's construct, and we may stand a chance of convincing them of the truth. But before they could come to a decision, the building went into lockdown and we were fired upon by Arasaka's Spec Ops team. Another pitiful attempt by Yorinobu to silence the truth. After dispatching the team, I'm ordered by Hanako to go to Yorinobu's floor and secure him alive. Using her keycard, I went to the upper atrium with a couple of bodyguards for protection, and once the doors were open, I spent most of my time controlling a camera to wipe out anyone I could see from the protection of my electronic lens, pushing up to the second floor's elevator to take it to the CEO level where I was sure to find Yorinobu. Up here, there was an enormous group of guards sitting just at the end of the hall, ready to blast me as the doors opened. I used the cover of the elevator to pop out and overheat whenever I could, until they were all neutralized. Then, just as I'm nearing Yorinobu's office doors, I'd come across exactly who I was expecting to see here. That's right, it's Adam fucking Smasher time. And whoo-hoo-wee was this an interesting one. So, full disclosure, I have never fought Adam Smasher in my life, so I had no idea how crazy this fight was going to be. Just when I thought I had him figured out, he would throw something new at me that I was forced to adapt to. This Netrunner type build is probably one of the worst to use versus Adam, mostly because the majority of your time is spent running around, avoiding his attacks, and waiting for his counter hack to wear off. Oh yeah, Adam has this stupid ass counter hack ability that knocks out the use of any of my quick hacks for a period of time, and he uses it every time I land a new hack on him. Now, the silver lining here is that I'm actually able to get off 2 hacks between each counter hack, but there was far more to his arsenal than just a lousy counter hack. No. Each time I was waiting for his defenses to fall, I would need to run like hell to avoid any incoming damage, as I still can't use any healing items. But remember, I have a perk that gives me healing over time now, so as long as I can minimize all incoming damage and play for time, I would be just fine. The sketchiest parts of this fight were when he would go all Rambo mode and start rocketing around the arena, exploding everything in his path, and the other being when one of the side walls would just open up and pour out a handful of enemies, also housing 2 turrets that were fairly easy to avoid, but would still hit me every so often. The main worry when this happened was that I was now only limited to one side of the battlefield until I was able to fry all the Arasaka goons. Then it was just avoiding the turrets, which, like I said, weren't really a big deal anyway. Adam only took me 2 attempts, one to figure out most of his patterns and one to counter them, which consisted mostly of me double jumping around frantically. The final fight took a staggering 20 minutes to fully bring his health to 0. I had finally made it to Yorinobu, and after obeying his sister's wishes, I stayed by his side until she showed up. Honoring her side of the deal, I'm then escorted by Hellman to Mikoshi to finally see what they could do about fixing me. After the procedure, I woke up in a very sterile looking room. I didn't like it, it creeped me out. I'm promptly greeted by one of the staff of the facility. They have me do a series of tests to confirm body functionality, then the next day they have me do them again, then the next again, and again, and again. Until one day I just had enough and destroyed my room in a rage. The next time I woke up, it wasn't the staff, but Hellman who greeted me. He, once again, brings me even more bad news. Great, motherfucker, pile it on. Of course, my body wasn't salvageable. I had 2 options. I could either be uploaded to the Saka prison, or go back to Earth and live out whatever time I had left. And since I was over this Groundhog's Day of a game we keep playing up here, I decided that I'd had enough, and that I was going out on my own terms, back on Earth. Answering, once and for all, that you can mostly beat Cyberpunk 2077 with only your mind. Thank you all for sticking around, and if you like this video, you may like some of my others. Maybe you like the one on screen right now. Who knows? Alright my dudes, I'll see you next time.